After an unbearably long break, just unbearably long, we are returning to bless you because there is so much to talk about all of a sudden. Isn't that nuts?
It's nutty.
It's nutty, man. This is completely nuts.
It's league season. We're creeping
We are
right up on
so
it.
close to league season, so it's only natural that we actually talk about league. We've been so caught up in this crazy Call of Duty. We won everything. We're the best team in the world thing. We need to just let that go and focus back on the LCS squad.
Back to business.
And also, today was a very special day for another reason. Everybody knows it's Bang's birthday. Happy birthday,
Hey,
Bang.
happy
100
birthday,
Thieves
Bang.
Bang. 100 T Bang. The most legendary of bangs.
If you haven't checked out he put a video on his Twitter of a bunch of people singing him happy birthday. Amazing is in it. Pretty cool. And also just like some really fine vocal work from what I understand to be the team chef. Like,
oh, nice.
got like an actual really good singing voice going on there.
That's sick. I actually did not watch this, so that's first on my list
Peep it.
after the show.
There you go. It's quality content right there.
Well, so happy birthday to Bang, everybody. Show him some love on Twitter at Bang, which is one of the coolest Twitter handles you'll ever see. Yes. And it's a special day for another reason, and that is because it's, as we like to disrespectfully refer to as D-Day or Drop Day. After
I think if you're on 100 Thieves staff, it truly is D-Day.
Yeah, it probably feels a little bit like D-Day. No disrespect. No disrespect. We are respectful of our history.
It's stressful.
Yeah, it's got to be.
That piece. No disrespect there. Mm-hmm. Yes, right. Yep.
Yeah, it's got to be a crazy day in the 100 Thieves offices. And crazy day for everybody who logged on and waited on the drop as well. And wow, what a drop it was. Matter of fact,
momentous.
We are going to talk about the drop tonight. I'm going to share my experience. Oh, Graphic Hipster in the chat says it's also his birthday. But he says he only has one World League of Legends championship. Well, we'll still wish you a happy birthday. Yeah, so we're going to talk about the apparel drop. We're going to talk a lot of roster stuff also because obviously we haven't had a podcast since the move to acquire Amazing was announced and the return of Ryu was announced and Soligo as our starting mid was announced. So there's lots of stuff to talk about tonight. Hopefully we will try and do so concisely and with a smart, reasonable, measured take on how everything's going to go because there's a lot of stuff that's kind of up in the air, man.
Yeah, it's been a long off season, Cole, and I've lost all of my rationality. I've become just an incredibly toxic fan. So I just want to let you know, I'm kind of going for a rebrand.
Okay.
This split. And maybe like a shock jock.
Are you going full Reddit on us?
Yeah, full Reddit. So I asked Reddit to write the script for my part of this show.
Oh, nice.
And I think it's really good. So I'm looking forward to sharing it with you.
That will be awesome.
And the fans.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be great. Just kidding.
Oh, and also I should mention, among other things, and maybe we should even lead off with this. A lot of people have asked us if we are going to discuss MSI because obviously there's big news in the MSI world with Team Liquid and G2 squaring off in the grand finals for MSI. Who saw that coming?
Yeah. Wow.
Not
2 a.m. tonight, Central Time, perhaps.
Yeah.
But that we're gonna do some. We're gonna watch it live. I don't know about that.
That's right. Well,
I might try to stay up.
I know Jordan had a lot of thoughts, a lot of hot takes about the MSI finals. So Jordan, I'll let you lead off and talk about that first.
Yeah, and typically we don't talk about, other competitive formats unless Thieves are in it. But this just feels like such a special occasion that I think it's appropriate to spend a little time here talking about this. So, both these teams just looking real good.
Yeah, and on my side, I'm thinking it should be a pretty good matchup.
I think that's probably right. I bet we'll get some good games.
Yep. And tune in
All right,
and watch.
Moving on.
All right, apparel drop. No, really, a lot of people asked us about MSI, and we just wanted to say, it'll be fun, but we're not going to pretend to weigh in on all the details of that. We're excited for it. Obviously, having the West of the finals is awesome.
Yeah.
All Western final should be really, really cool. And we're excited about that. But that's a little outside of our realm of expertise, if you want to call it that. So,
Yep.
well,
We'll leave it to the pros. There'll be a lot of people talking about this for a long time.
yeah. And you don't want to hear from us. We're too stupid for that. Apparel drop, though. I am stupid enough to have logged on to try and get 100 Thieves apparel today. I am masochistic enough and insane enough to do that. The apparel drop. And I got a whole bunch of comments on Twitter about this thing too. So I figured what I would do is kind of share exactly what happened in my experience with the drop, and then share some thoughts on that. And Jordan, you were wiser than I was, and you did not participate in the drop activities.
It was due to technical error.
Yeah.
My alarm
Yeah.
did not go off, and I looked up from what I was doing and realized that I missed the whole darn thing.
Yeah. Poor Jordan did not do this. It's probably better off for it. So yeah, here's what happened to me. So as you guys know, I will try and buy every piece from every apparel drop that ever happens. So I was fully prepared to do all 5 pieces. The stuff went live like a little bit early. I think it was like 45 seconds early or something, somewhere in that neighborhood where I was refreshing and it actually came up. So I was like, oh shoot, I got a jump start on this. So I started adding everything to my cart. And again, I wanted all 5. So I took my time, like getting the right size for each single one. And then I went to go load.
You had time.
Yeah, thinking I had time. So I went to go load my cart. And when I pulled up my cart, it was like within an inch of its life from Frozen. Like it was like if you're watching the little heartbeat monitor on thing, it was like beep, beep, like that's all it was.
Right.
And so it was an inch away from Frozen, and it kind of like locked up for about 2 minutes, I would say, where I couldn't hit the checkout button, which is when I started getting a little antsy, a little nervous about it, because I haven't like missed out on any pieces of the drop before.
Yeah.
So
the full collection is represented.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, I finally got the thing to load, and I went to check out, and I have like autofill in Google Chrome. So like it had my credit card in there. I already made a 100 Thieves account, obviously a long time ago. So all of my shipping was preloaded. All my payment was preloaded. And, I went to like go through the process of checking out, which was a little bit slow, but once I actually got into the line, there's like a little thing that spins and says like, you're in line for checkout. And, once it loaded, it was going like decently well or whatever. So entered in my payment info and went to like advance, and it just like stuck there for a little bit. And then it like, after like 30 seconds, maybe it looked like it was going to reload. Like it kind of like the screen went blank and like flashed a little bit. So I was like, oh, did it reload? So I hit like checkout again, and then still nothing was happening. And I was like, what is going on? And then like my phone's buzzing, and I don't want to look at my phone because like I'm focused on the drop, man. I don't have time to like answer my wife's text or whatever.
Can't text your mom back?
Yeah, no. My mom, yeah, happy late Mother's Day, whatever. So, but it's like hanging up. So I glance at my phone and I see that my bank texted me and is like, your credit card was just pinged 3 times for this high amount. Like,
oh, what are you doing?
We've suspect fraud, so we've shut down your credit card. So my credit card got shut down. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna go to PayPal, and I switched my payment over to PayPal. And when I advance through that, I get to like right before the actual like completion page, and it tells me like now the hoodie's sold out, and like you can't get it. So I was like, okay, like drop that and go through it again, and right before it check out again, it says the anorak just sold out.
Oh.
So it takes me back. My card suggested, and then I go through it again, and it's like, oh, the black glitch tee just sold out.
No
So
way.
I'm like, okay, this is 3 consecutive L's. This is not going well. And it takes me back. So all I've got is the white glitch tee and the hat in my cart. And then I'm able to complete checkout though. So I get those. I get the white tee and the hat. So that was my experience with it. which was crazy. Like it, and that was, I should mention, it was like 3 or 4 minutes into the drop when this happened. Because I probably was like ready to go on checkout at like 2:01, right?
Yeah.
So and I froze for a little bit, and then
seconds. Yeah.
So that is nuts, and it looked like the whole thing sold out in what, like 6 minutes or something.
Yeah, I think
6 minutes or something like that.
Minutes, yeah.
So it's the
That's
fastest
crazy.
it's ever gone.
And the most stuff they've ever had.
And the
in it.
most pieces they've ever
Quantity.
made, right? Like yeah, the quantity of what they had in stock was like the highest it's ever been. I'm guessing that Call of Duty did a lot to draw some attention to us, because now we're like, you know, on top of the world there. And in the 100 Thieves Discord, I saw like a lot of white names talking in Apparel, which is like, you know, new people who haven't been there for very long. So yeah, right. I think like everything with the team is like popping right now. And it's a
great problem to have.
Yeah, it's a great problem to have. Even though they're scaling up, like, you know, they just can't meet this crazy demand for all the product that's there.
Right.
So it's pretty crazy. Now, I will say this. I was pretty bummed out about this. But if you look behind me on my merch wall, you will see the tricolor hoodie, the white glitch tee, the anorak. You'll see me wearing the glitch tee, and right here, which you can't really see, this is the hat. I had a nice little care package on my doorstep today from the guys.
Did I.
Yeah. So that was just amazing from Under Thieves to reach out like that. And so fortunately, I didn't actually end up missing out on the whole drop. And Jordan, you're wearing a little something too.
Got that.
Rack. That's right. So
and can I just add, the whole time you've been telling the story, Nova in chat has been like, but wait,
yeah,
what about isn't that stuff all behind you?
He's talking about not getting the drop. The drop's hanging behind him. Yeah. So yes, just wanted to take a minute to thank 100 Thieves staff, Jackson, John, everybody who was a part of that. Thank you very much for doing that and supporting the show in that way. So that said, I have a lot of thoughts on this stuff, which we're not going to get into in the show right now, but I will save for another day. But you did hear me say that with the normal drop process, I was able to get some stuff, right? I was able to get the white glitch tee and the hat. So I'm proud to announce it's giveaway time, baby. It's giveaway time, baby.
Yes.
So
my favorite times.
I got a hat to give away. That hat is going to be given away to listeners of 100 Talk. So you guys will have details on like a contest entry coming up. Obviously this just happened, so we haven't really like super planned for it. But we will at some point either this weekend or during the week let you know what the instructions are for entering the giveaway for the hat. And who knows, maybe there'll be a tee giveaway too a little bit later. So we want to spread that love to you as much as we possibly can. So
as always, especially when there was clearly a very high level of demand. So.
Yeah, and as Exotic, what's up, Exotic, by the way, in the chat pointed out, the increase of social influencers probably increased demand as well. Yes, I think 100%. Yeah. Like, as you know, when Ninja's tweeting photos of himself wearing the drop, there's people who are probably a little more interested in it. You know,
I think
Ninja among others.
Almost, like 300 or 400 likes on that picture. That's a huge.
I think that he has like at least 1,000 followers. Yeah,
the dude is popular. Yeah. And if you wore it on stream, dozens of people probably saw that.
Yeah, dozens. So
dozens of thousands.
Drop day is pretty crazy. I do want to share a couple thoughts about it. Like, first of all, like the stock, we don't know like how much stock they had or whatever, but we've been told this is the highest amount they've ever stocked. Also, like, it appears to me like there's not really like a great way to improve the way the drop happens, because to me it's feeling just like, drops on the sneakers app by Nike or drops for Supreme or whatever, which is even crazier. Supreme sells out in like literally a handful of seconds, right? Like, and the site always freezes. Yeezy drops are the same way, right? Like, it's just kind of the reality of how these things happen.
Right.
Which in my opinion has always been sort of like part of the adventure along the way.
Mm-hmm.
you have this
Yeah,
great
which-
story to tell. Like I just told this story about like missing out on most of the drop, but it's still just like a crazy fun story to share. And it makes it so when you actually get the piece that you're, even more excited and even more proud of it. So for me, that's like kind of like a fun part of the culture. Now I totally get missing out on stuff though.
Yeah.
Like, especially if it happens repeatedly, it's like, it sucks when you want to support the team or whatever. But just know that like, the teams tweeted out, Nate Shot tweeted out, Jackson tweeted out, they're so like happy with how much demand there is for this stuff. And the quicker these things sell out, the more stock they'll have for the next time. And they'll see, all right, we can scale this thing up and blow it out. So,
yeah, I feel like the drops up till now have been more like 15 minutes usually, which I feel like does give a lot of people a chance to get in and get what they want. 5 minutes is pretty crazy. And if you just do the math, right? Let's say they made 1,000, just to keep the math simple, 1,000 of each. I'm sure they made a lot more than that. If there are 10,000 people in line at the time that it goes live, and everybody goes to their cart at the same time, the system is just going to say like, sorry, we can't give it to you. Yeah. Like, there is a limit, and it seems like we hit it today, because even if you were there right at the start and hit the button as soon as it went live, there just was that many people simultaneously doing the same exact thing.
Right.
Limited supply here.
Yep. So yes, there is like obviously a frustration element that's part of it, but at the same time, there's like this crazy victory dance that you can do when you actually get the pieces. I would say going forward, I'm going to focus on PayPal as a checkout option, just because, in this and past drops, like that's worked out better for me and quicker. I heard a lot of people talking about mobile was pretty fast still, which is good. And then
credit cards losers this time.
Yeah, well, at least in my case.
I mean, they saved you from buying 4 sets of the drop.
right. Well, and then the other thing is, I would definitely say that I'm not sure, like if there's a drop of 5 pieces, like it takes time to add all 5 to your cart. So I'm not sure, like if there's a lot of stuff, like if you should just focus on one thing or try and get it all, because it's a gamble, man. And it's getting increasingly that way. So,
right. Like if you would have gone straight for the Anorak, would you have got it?
Yeah.
Probably.
So, man, drops are crazy, but drops are fun. Hopefully there's not as long of a wait before the next one. As the team said, there were some kind of like production issues, technical stuff that happened that made it really hard to deliver the product. And on first glance, especially with this Anorak, like that thing is no joke. That's it had to be a very, very difficult thing to pull together, especially because they've never done anything like that before. Like the Windbreaker is a totally different ball game than the Anorak. Like it's totally different.
There's a lot going on with this piece of clothing.
That's right.
Like there's like this thing happens here. There's layers. There's just
different fabrics. There's like there's venting and everything. It's like it's a different ball game. So
for sure.
That was one of the reasons why the drop was kind of like delayed and then became this bigger drop. So hopefully that won't happen in the future. Exotic's asking about Apple Pay in the chat. Hot take for the 100 Talk chat. Apple Pay. This, like, to me was risky because Apple Pay has not worked out for people in the past. And I heard a couple people say that Apple Pay worked for them today, but I heard a lot of people say that it didn't. So that one to me
roll the
is
dice, man.
Yeah, that's like a little more risky in my opinion. Now I didn't try it, so I'm going off of like word of mouth here.
Yeah.
So if I'm wrong about that, then sorry. Exotic, if you use Apple Pay or whatever, let us know. But yeah, it's just that's risky. The drops are just getting more and more insane, man. It's gonna be like your glory from the battles that you fought. It's like, oh, I got this T-shirt, it's awesome.
I do wonder if it's gonna start being more like that.
Yeah.
Because I feel like, again, up till now, if you wanted every piece and you could afford every piece and you showed up on time, you get every piece.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's more like, if I'm not mistaken, more like Supreme and Yeezys and stuff. It doesn't matter if you're there. There's also like an RNG element to it. Did the system allot you one of the limited quantity?
Yeah.
Did you get a lucky ticket?
Right. The golden ticket.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, let's talk about roster stuff now, because there is a lot going on that we have not addressed at all.
We spent a lot of time at the end of last season spitballing and brainstorming and trying to solve this puzzle, and the team over there, they came up with something.
Yeah, they did.
We won't know how it works, but I mean, honestly, at one point we were kind of just saying like, I don't even know what you try. I don't even know what you try.
Yeah, we were at
but
a loss.
I mean, they have a thing. They have a thing to try. So now we get to talk about it. I'm very excited.
That's right. So let's start at the maybe the most prominent thing, which was the pickup of Amazing.
Yes, Amazing.
So I'll let you kind of lead the discussion on Amazing, because I know like you've been doing a little research on him, and you've got some background that you can share for people, which a lot of people probably know it more than we do, but we'll go ahead and share it for them.
But if anybody out there is more LCS centric, so let's get right into the details. Amazing was most recently a coach in the LEC, I believe, for Schalke No Fear's, basically their academy team. And so I'm gonna just keep my eye on chat. Chat's gonna let me know about this. Blow me up. Anyway, so he was a coach most recently. So you can kind of think of him as like a Ryu type figure. Is how I think about him a little bit. Successful career, long career. He's a veteran. He's 25 years old. He's the same age as Double Lift. Played for a long time. A lot of different teams, going all the way back to like 2011-12. Was on TSM in 2014, I believe, just for one split, if I'm not misremembering that. And again, I'm not remembering that because I remember watching him in 2014. Reminder,
right?
We weren't watching League then.
Watching League then.
But there are records of these things.
And if I'm not mistaken, the TSM play is what got him in a residency, right?
That's what I've been hearing, but that seems weird to me because I think it was just a split. So maybe the rules were different in 2014, where it's like, hey, if you're in NA, you're NA, and welcome to NA.
That's something maybe chat can clear up for us too. But he is in fact an NA. He has NA residency.
Right.
So this is not taking up an import slot, which again probably everybody already knows by now. But that's that's an important distinction, and kind of speaks in my mind to a little bit of the creativity that the staff put into finding a solution here. Is like, Amazing wasn't on everyone's radar. It wasn't like no one ever brought it up, but that wasn't among the first options we were thinking of.
Right. And maybe partially because he was taking some time out to coach, and so maybe he wasn't as prominent on the player radars for a lot of people. But so what I did is I kind of looked back a little bit to his days playing on. He played on Schalke No Fear before coaching for them.
And that's like their academy level team, right?
He was a coach for the academy level. And he was with them for one split. So yeah, not a super long time. But the thing that's really interesting to me, and that I'm like, okay, the pattern continues. He was not on their team in spring of 18. So for fans of the pod, he was not on their team when we started watching League, and then summer split he jumped on. And in spring they finished 8th, and in summer they finished, drumroll, second.
Yeah.
Second. I cut off your drum roll.
Sorry.
But that was a good drum roll.
Got to be quicker on the drum rolls.
I know, yeah. I didn't actually know you were going to do one, so next time I queue up a drum roll, I'll give it some time.
Dude, when you say drum roll, you're going to get a drum roll. That's one of the things you learn early in life, man. Come on.
Not everybody delivers, but I know you do now. So.
I'm a man of great dedication and integrity.
And drum rolls, yeah. So they flew up the table all the way to second. And in Europe, they call it a table. So let's just go with that. That's the standings. So yeah, they finished in second, and they did really well. I didn't watch the series. Like, I don't have the background on that, but I do know that he was on the second team, or no, is that right?
The second team.
I think he was third team.
Yeah.
Finished third team in summer 2018. Again, apologies if I'm wrong. I know that he played with Nuke Duck, who was second team.
Yeah.
Nuke Duck was a mid, and that's an important one. We'll come back to that in a little bit. But
I will say, just to reference what we said earlier, a couple people were weighing in on the residency thing, and Brother Darkness Gaming said that they were grandfathered in, him and Bjergsen, before they made the import rule.
Nice.
Quasi Cat said when they changed the rule, they gave imports an option to choose where they wanted to be a resident, and he chose NA.
Wow.
Which, hey, how prescient. Now everybody's going to choose NA.
Exactly.
Now that we're the best region in the world, am I right? I'll drink to that.
So will I.
There we go.
I feel sated. All right.
Oh, and also, Craven Dillon in chat just dropped 5 gifted subs. What a guy. What a guy. He's done that before, too. He had the gift icon. Thank you so much. That's incredible. Really appreciate that. Man.
It's been a while since we've seen you. I kind of miss you.
That's a blessing. Yeah, I know. It's great to have him back.
An actual pod, so it's good to have you back, buddy.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's a guy who joins a team who finished right near the bottom there, and pretty quickly he was the only player change. They had a coaching change. They had 2 coaches. One of the coaches swapped out. The other one stayed the same. So that's another variable. But so far as like changes go in game, he was the only change.
Mm-hmm. Now his reputation, right, if I'm not mistaken, is more of like a vocal, shot calling oriented guy, right? Like little aggressive, definitely wants to give a direction to the team and play that way. In fact, reading about him, I think I saw something about like part of the reason he chose jungler was he wanted to impact the game like very directly, like go where he wants to go and change the game. Yeah. Sounds like what the doctor orders right now, right?
I would concur.
Yeah.
I mean, certainly as you read the tweet that announced him, it was like, I think they mentioned 3 things: boom, 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 like vocal leader, experienced veteran. I can't remember what else, but you know, I think it is like that was last split. I think that's a lot of what we were missing. And one of the things that really jumped out at me was, you know, we talked about, or we will talk a little bit more about Ryu as well, but he's got a similar profile as Ryu in my mind, in that he's got a lot of experience. He's played for a long time. He knows the game very, very well. And even if he's not, and I'm not saying this, I think there are qualities outside of being mechanically gifted that show up when you have that kind of a player in your lineup. And I think for Ryu, when we took him out, we were feeling more acutely the lack of experience, the loss of his voice in game. These are all my thoughts. And again, this is kind of a rehash of a lot of what we talked about last split. So
yeah, no, that's fair to say. I mean, a lot of the criticism of Ryu was around mechanics and not a lot focused on macro or whatever. And it's interesting because when we talked to both Joseph and Kelsey, they mentioned how especially when they're working at academy level, it's like mechanics are great to have and important and they make a big difference or whatever. But even more important was the feel for the game that the veteran players have. And that's like the even harder to attain quality, even harder than mechanics, is just to have the game sense and to be able to translate that in different situations and in different like scenarios and be able to make the right decision in game and get everybody on that page. So if we lost some semblance of that strategy with when Ryu left the team, which is obviously like that's pure speculation, we can never directly point to that, but it feels like looking at the results, that's a lot of what happened. Hopefully the idea is we're getting some of that back, adding a veteran presence here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's right. And it's one of those things that you can't, you know, as a younger player, I think you can be amazing in lane and really, really, really good, but it's the rare player who has the game sense that a veteran does early on in career. And certainly we see them, right? Like, I think there are plenty of examples currently of players who are both mechanically gifted and who have the game sense that somebody kind of more tenured than them would. So I think that's the hope, right? Is that he's going to bring those things back to us, and he's going to do it without taking up an import slot.
Which is even better.
which is very important.
Yeah. Can I shout out really quick?
Yes.
In Twitch chat, Ray's Modern Life said if he is the vocal leader that takes pressure off of Afro, also just to play his game more. If he is the vocal leader that takes pressure off of Afro, also just to play his game more. I hope so. I hope that's the case too, because obviously we've talked about Afro's performance and how we weren't sure what was going to be the case with him when he returned, what form he'd be in and how he'd be playing, but it did certainly seem like he was not the 2018 MVP that he was, so
No,
hopefully
definitely not.
that's a good change too. Sorry for interrupting you. Go ahead.
No, I'm glad you brought that up. And I think that's one thing everybody can agree on. Afro is a fan favorite. He's one of our favorites. He's an icon in the game. But I don't think anybody would argue that he was playing at the same level he was last spring as he did in 2018. Like I think that's just a matter of fact. So if you may not agree, and I hope that you don't feel like he take the more extreme view that was going on out there, that he's a bad person because he played poorly and he doesn't deserve to be here because he's not trying hard or whatever. Don't read into it. But the guy didn't perform at the same level. So anything we can do to try to get him back to that is going to be super important, especially because it doesn't, I don't expect that we're going to see movement in that position, right? I think that the only possibility is that we see more of Stunt in the LCS lineup, which I think Stunt is a great player. And I think it's I hope that we continue to develop him. And there's a lot of promise we saw there, but I think Afro is going to be our starting guy. So,
yeah, I think Afro's spot is safe for right now.
Yeah, we need to get him back to the level he was at for sure.
Yeah. So I don't think we're really gonna have changes on the horizon. So I would agree with that take.
The other thing I wanted to bring up is I'm very eager to see, even if Amazing is not, let's say top 3 jungler. Like let's say he's not competing for, all LCS teams at the end of the split. And I'm not saying that because I don't think he will be. I'm just saying, let's say he is not there. I think there's a very real possibility that he is going to contribute to the team, to the other lanes in a way that Anda wasn't able to. So, I think back on a lot of the miscues that happened between Anda and Someday.
Yeah. The weird top lane ganking. And stuff.
Like these just really clunky where they both looked bad. So I think even if you aren't one of the top 3 junglers in NA, if there's at least a better synergy between Amazing and Someday, or I even think about bot lane, right? Like we all kind of talked about that, and how come we're not seeing more interaction with jungle and bot lane? If he can get a better rhythm with bot lane, I think that could change a lot of our games in a pretty substantial way.
Yeah,
and that doesn't require him to be one of the best junglers, right? It's like we don't need a superstar jungler to do that. We need somebody who's solid and who knows the game well and who is reliable.
And maybe just to provide us with different ways to attack the game, because it seemed like our play style was a little stale with our starting roster. I almost wonder, and this is not me hearing anything or whatever. This is just me throwing out this as a guess, and this thought never super occurred to me until today anyway. But I almost wonder, we had a situation where Anda was maybe not perceived as a very high level player on the team, and maybe even perceived as a young player, even though he did have some experience before 100 Thieves. Like, maybe you wouldn't call him a veteran player or whatever. And then his partner mid was Huhi, which is like one of the most veteran players you can have. So maybe it was a case that Anda felt a little bit like tied to who he wanted to do and wasn't freed up as much. So maybe if we have this situation where now we've got veteran jungler who can travel around the map and work with a younger mid in Soligo and kind of guide him and direct him and shot call with him, maybe the reversing the direction of the the strategies coming out of the mid and jungle duo will be beneficial in that way.
Right.
Again, I want to say Huhi's guy has a reputation for being awesome dude. Like, I don't think like Huhi's like, no, I'm not going to listen to you and or whatever. That's not what I'm saying. But just the direction. You're more comfortable giving direction from a veteran position. So reversing that direction may be, something that shakes things up enough for us efficiently.
Yeah. No, absolutely. So I think for me, to kind of sum up my thoughts on Amazing, is I am hopeful. I don't think that this gives us a winning summer roster. And I think that if you are arguing that it does, I would invite you to tune in to MSI tonight for the finals between Team Liquid and G2. Because after Team Liquid's finished with the finals, they're coming back to the LCS to play Summer 2019. So this idea of winning the split just became, I would say, pretty much a non-starter. And
No, dude, have faith.
yeah,
We can do
right.
it. Anybody can do
right.
it.
Anything's possible.
You never know what can happen. The Golden State Warriors will lose.
Thank you. But you know what? I'm totally at peace with that. I would be very happy if we made playoffs and went, like, I'm looking for some kind of redemption here. I don't need us to be back at Worlds this year. That's not how I'm going to define success for Summer. So if Amazing can do what he did last time he was playing at Schalke and improve our standings, maybe even get us into the playoffs and make a run, that would be fantastic. And I would be thrilled with that. And I think I'm optimistic that will happen.
Yeah. Well, we'll bookmark that because we're going to come back to talk about where we project the team's going to finish. Our way too early predictions or whatever. We'll get back to that. I do want to spend some time talking about Soligo, though, because I think this is maybe the most controversial thing that's out there. Amazing, like I said, I don't think Amazing was the number one choice for a lot of people. At least he wasn't top of mind, but I don't think anybody's really pushing back against that acquisition. It seems like, no, that's like a good solution given what's available and what's happening.
Yeah.
Soligo may be more controversial in that sense. Being an academy player for us last year and a green academy player, right? Coming straight out of scouting grounds and then having to take up his spot on the starting roster for what was it? It ended up being 4 games, right? Like 2 weekends last split that he started. His performance was like decent. It wasn't game breaking, but what I did notice is that it seemed that the less, like when he first played, it seemed like everybody had his back. Like, okay, we're not going to let him just get destroyed by Bjergsen in his first ever game. So he had a lot of attention from the other players on the team, which good for them, by the way. That's really good.
That's having a game plan.
Yeah. And TSM was like actively playing through mid during that game anyway. Yeah. And he did pretty well. Like he held his own, I thought, in a good way with that support. For the next 3 games, it seemed like that level of support tapered off as they're like, all right, let's get him into the groove. And I think his performance tapered off as well. So we saw some things that were like, maybe I'm not so sure about having this guy as our starter. And now we, fast forward, now we're about to start Summer Split, and he is the starter.
He is the starter.
So how are you feeling about him?
Yeah.
And, what does this move tell you about the team too?
Well, okay. How do I feel about him starting? I think we spent time talking about Soligo toward the end of the last split. I think when he came in, we still had a shot at the season. The season wasn't done, right? And so there was a lot of hope and pressure, I think, put on him. And remember, Nadeshot sat down with him and talked through that and just said, play your game. Don't worry about this. Your job is not to save us. But I think there's part of that which we were all hoping it would happen, right? Like that's, as a fan, that's what you hold on to is like, what if it works? That would be pretty crazy. So it was disappointing, right? For sure that it didn't work because it would have been great if it worked. It would have been nice. I think for this split coming up, I'm thinking about it as we saw potential in him. We saw him hold his own against 4 really tough opponents. Somebody in chat reminded us that was some tough opponents there. So there were a lot of factors against him, and I don't want to lose sight of it either. That I think you've got to imagine that the morale of the team was not in a great place, and that it's hard to play at your peak when you know that the season's over or it's been a disaster already. Like he came in at a low point. So I'm all that to say, I'm very interested to see how he plays and performs with a fresh slate, with some more practice. He's still super green, so he's had a lot of time to practice between last split and this one. So I think to answer your question, how I'm feeling about him starting, I'm feeling, I guess I'm curious to see. especially if we don't start off with the same kind of gauntlet, 4-game gauntlet that he ended on.
Yeah.
You know, how does he do against some of these mid-tier jungler or mid laners, and like what's his potential? So I'm not convinced that he's going to be our answer, but I'm not convinced that that we're wasting our time either.
Yeah. Well, and another point you were making was about, you know, we've often talked about how closely mid and jungle are tied together, and you talked about Anda and what his level of play was last split, especially towards the end. And you were asking the question, like, how much of this dynamic should be factored into Soligo's performances last year? That's a valid concern too.
Right. If, you know, like you said, teams are playing through mid. I think they recognize that Soligo is green and he was vulnerable, and so they set up a tent, right? And if he didn't have a good jungler relationship, at least one that he felt comfortable with, and you know, he probably didn't, because they hadn't been playing together that long. And to boot, and it wasn't really, he certainly wasn't at his world's peak at that point. He was pretty much opposite of that
far
point.
from it. Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's important, and we've already seen a picture of Amazing carrying someday, or Soligo. So
that's right. Let's talk really quick about Ryu, and then we're bringing it back to some general theoretical questions about the roster and some of the moves that were made and projections for this upcoming split.
Yeah.
Ryu is a really interesting one, right? Because he, quote, retired, retained by 100 Thieves on contract, and he was made, I guess, like as a coaching advisory role, if you want to call it that, where he was still with the team all the time. He was still, you know, spreading his knowledge and experience to the team.
I like to imagine he was a position coach.
Yeah, there you go. He's like he's the hands coach or something.
Yeah.
Right. So he's been around. It's not like he was legitimately sitting at home and wasn't privy to everything that was going, which I think is a big deal. He's not just coming out of like not being with the team forever to try and fit in all of a sudden. He's in the know. He knows what all the strategies have been, what the struggles have been, what they've tried to fix it. And
he still knows probably just as well as he always did.
Yeah, that's right. And so having him back, I think, is really cool. Now, he is designated for Academy right now, which is also cool because he gets to speak with our young babies, our league babies, and raise them in the right ways, which I think is great for them.
Yeah. Yep. I saw a lot of people asking about that. So finish your thought, but I want to make sure I hear from you on why did they put him on Academy?
Yeah. Well, yes, we'll get to that. So one of the big questions though is how is his playing form, right? Yep. And I don't think we really know the answer to that question. I know like he's showed up on some streams. I think Someday played against him on stream like not too long ago, and there's a video about it, and it was actually hilarious, by the way, to hear them talking. Man, maybe miss the good old days of 2018.
But speaking English?
Yeah, speaking English a lot of the time, actually. And it was hilarious. Like, it was like funny, good English, by the way. So communication problems, nah. So that'll be the big question mark for Ryu, is what is his form going to be? So the weird part about that is we're not going to be able to judge it while he's on Academy. Like, I mean, unless
he's absolutely smurfing.
Well, yes, unless he destroys everyone or really sucks. We'll figure that out pretty quick. But I think for the most part, it'll be a question mark still. Now, it is interesting. He's going to be playing with Anda as his jungler, which is very interesting, right? Because if Anda's smurfing too, you know, they could just roll over Academy as long as that goes well. Who knows?
Maybe a new Cloud9 in here.
Yeah.
Redesignate our LCS squad as the Academy.
Yeah. You had
some world.
Right. You had some notes about Ryu on the rundown. Did you want to share some of that?
Yeah. You know, I would just ask the fans to remember. So I think a lot of people say, well, you know, Ryu, why are we bringing him back? We got rid of him for a reason. And you know, once upon a time, you and I were talking about Ryu as being, he was not in the same class as Caps and Rookie. We learned that from Worlds, and there's no question about it. and I know that that's still the case because Caps and Rookie are still playing at the pinnacle of competition, and so they're better than they've ever been. And so when we switched him, my thought was, well, we can't if our goal is to win Worlds, we can't have the same thing happen again. We cannot go back with the same lineup and just get rolled through mid again. And I think for me, our goal is so different now. There's no world where I'm thinking like, well, it's kind of a double-edged sword to bring him back because when we go back to Worlds, he's not going to be as good.
Yeah, because we have to, like, by definition, beat Team Liquid, TSM, and C9 this split. Like, we have to win it all to get to Worlds.
Yeah, it's not impossible.
Yeah, but that's the path.
That's the path. So, I do view him. There are a lot of things I really like about Ryu, and now these are things that we've kind of put together, so it's not like confirmed. I mean, he was always good, right? He was never a problem for us.
Yeah, and so our take on him was always that he was underrated. That people focus a little too much about the mechanical things, and there's like a permanent replay of the Faker Zed play like etched on everybody's eyelids, so it's hard to look past that. Yeah. But at the same time, like he when we did our top 15 plays from 2018, like he showed up a lot in that with some crazy plays.
And he showed up a lot as an enabler of other people's plays.
Yeah.
Don't forget that. So I think it's great. I think it's a really good move, especially if what we're trying to do here is reestablish ourselves as a top 4 team in NA. I think it's a welcome addition.
Yeah.
But Cole, how do we get him into the main lineup?
Well, that's the thing. So right now there's no stated intention to have him in the main lineup, right?
Right.
To me, and this is kind of zooming out and talking about some general things, like if you stop and think like what are the roster moves that we made tell us about the team? Mm-hmm. Okay, if you start with mid lane, right? There is in my mind there is no chance that the team's plan was to have Soligo start, right? Like
right.
He's fine in academy and he's young and we'll teach him whatever, that's great. But there, in my mind, there's just no chance they weren't gunning for a bigger prospect in some way. Mm-hmm. Mid lane in NA is pretty nutty though, right? Like no one wants to let go of who they have in mid lane. There are just not a lot of options there. So you're bringing someone up from academy, or getting super creative with how you fill that position. So to me, looking at Soligo starting, I feel like a lot of that is your hand being forced because you couldn't really fill that position with a better asset, right? Right. And that's no like shame on the people who are like making these moves, right? Like no shame on that because that's like everyone wants to hold their mid laner in NA basically. Mm-hmm. And some of the, it's just like there's import situations also. So it has to be a domestic slot for us with our current configuration. That's like a big deal, right? And then if you look at Amazing too, which as we're talking about, sounds like a fine acquisition. Sounds like a lot of people like this solution or whatever, but he wasn't playing last split. And my sense is that kind of a similar thing happened there too, where it's, could not find a jungler move that really worked out for us. And I don't know if that's other teams greeting. Like I was thinking about TSM, who's like sitting on Grig and Spica, right? Like just sitting on them. They've got 3 junglers on the roster right now, and like can't make any of that work. Like, that's kind of crazy to me. And I think it would be crazy for those things to have not really been explored. So in my mind, what the roster moves are telling us, and bringing Ryu back too, it's like we weren't able to complete the moves that we wanted to make. And this, there are not a lot of teams in the league domestically. Yeah. So I always think about like trades in terms of professional sports when it's like NBA and NFL. I mean, you got 32 teams to interact with. There's always someone in a scenario where they're willing to deal. But when you've got 10 teams and there's only like most of them don't use their academy players on a like on a pro level, there are so few assets out there that transactions just don't tend to happen very often. Right. So it's like this situation where what, we can't get the pieces we want. So what's the best way to like make something work? And that's where I think we are right now. The interesting thing in the situation, the whole direction I'm going with this is what we are sitting on is reportedly a very, very good academy asset in Fake God. So
Yes.
this is an NA prospect. It's a young guy, super young, who has amazing potential. Was the got the award for best player in Scouting Grounds. Had a great split with the academy team. Looked good when he started for LCS too. I mean, those are weird circumstances, so you can't really, take a look at that.
He
But
basically just playing with the academy team.
yeah, it
you know.
sounds like everybody's really high on this guy, right? He just happens to be sitting behind a man named Someday.
Some daddy.
Someday, who is also an amazing top laner, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And Someday has been wonderful for us, has been probably our most consistent and best player, like over the entire existence of the team. What we didn't see from Someday, though, like in 2019, was him just going out and winning games for us, right? He would build massive leads. Like he would be sitting on like a 3,000 gold lead just in his lane, and then wasn't able to convert that into a winning performance, right? And that's, I'm not blaming that specifically on him, because there's the rest of the team that you have to worry about. But the fact is, like, with him in there, it wasn't enough to kind of send us over the edge. Now he's incredibly good, and I've expressed my opinion on this in the past. Like, I like Someday, and I personally would keep him in and would build around him. But looking for the future of the team, I mean, if you've got a dude who's a borderline like prodigy guy, right? If Fake God really is who some people are saying he is,
Like, let's say he's the next Licorice.
right? Exactly. Like, at what point do you switch him in and give him a go, right? You're not winning in the current situation. So the question then becomes, if we put Fake God in, that frees up an import slot, and that other import that we have to play is Ryu, right? And is Ryu an improvement over Soligo? And I would argue yes.
Yeah,
Now,
right now, absolutely.
right. We don't know what form Ryu's in, but if he's able to play approximately at the same level that he played in 2018, I think, you could make a big argument that Fake God Ryu is a better option than Someday Soligo.
Yep.
So
like, their overall performance would be better than Sunday Soligo.
right. So that's something to think about, man. And I think that if it was me, I would want to try this. If for no other reason, to just like give it the old test, which is something that maybe we didn't do enough of last split, right?
Yeah.
We're in 10th place, so it's not like we can finish worse than we did last split. So you might as well learn while you're doing it, right?
Yeah.
And there's the potential to, I mean, there are a few ways it could go. You could try it and it could suck. And it's like, okay, well, that didn't work. Or you could try it and it's like, well, it's kind of in the middle. Nothing, like, we didn't do significantly better, but we didn't do worse. And this guy's got a future ahead of him. So maybe we let him sit in there.
Yeah.
Or it could just immediately
reps.
go well, and we could make that the default starting option. Or we could go like Cloud9 and have like a 7-man roster situation going, and we could switch it up situationally.
Right.
So there are a lot of different ways it could go, but we're already at the bottom. So, just I'm serious when I say this. Like, sometimes just jolting what the format is enough to raise the performance.
Yeah.
And that might be something worth exploring, especially if we want to grow Fake God into like our starting option in 2020 or 2021 or whatever. Like, he's got to get that experience somewhere. He can't be a like 18-year-old academy player for the rest of his life.
Because soon he'll be a 21-year-old academy player, 22-year-old academy player.
Yeah.
Then
Now,
the moment is past.
Right. And I do want to point out, so Ray's Modern Life in Twitch chat says, you also know what form Soligo is, since he's had all this time with the team now. And I agree with that. And I do personally think that Soligo will play better than he played last split. Like, he's, in my mind, he's on the way up. So yes, that's definitely true. So I expect Soligo to be a little bit better, but right now I'm still thinking that, Fake God Ryu might be at least a comparable, if not better, group together. Now we'll have to see how that works.
Right.
But I'm
right.
saying
so for you,
that could very well be on the table.
the test for you would be to see if are we losing games through mid? Because if the answer is yes, then we shouldn't continue to lose games through mid with the chance that we might win them through top.
Yeah.
It's like maybe we take a roll of dice and see if we can just win through all lanes rather than saying we're going to invest all of our chips into one lane at the expense of the others.
That's right. And, it could be that someday an amazing play really well together and this really doesn't become an issue or whatever.
Right. And then we do win through top.
Yeah. So we don't know what's going to happen. All I'm saying is that if it was me, I would give our current starting roster a couple weeks or maybe 3 or 4 weeks. And then depending on how that goes, I would definitely have the Fake God Ryu option on the table and I would be willing to take it. So I would, I would keep my eye on that situation. If we continue to look like a 10th place team, I mean, you're going to throw everything but the kitchen sink at them, right? Well, you are going to throw the kitchen sink at it. You don't have any more options.
Yep. We didn't talk at all about Prismal Bang. But I think that's just because the gap is so much wider, right? That's the other one people would think of. If you want to get Ryu into the main lineup, there's another option.
Yes. That one seems less good. Not as good.
I agree. I just want to put it out there and make sure we acknowledge it's just not as clear a move. Yeah. I don't think we should. We're not at that point.
Yeah.
Where we're saying just who can play, marksman, put him in.
Yeah. Craven Dillon in chat says maybe we can swap between Fake God Ryu and someday Soligo through the split. Then we can get a clear picture of what roster we might go for in 2020. And I think that's a very reasonable thing because the position we're sitting in, where it's very unlikely that we'll make Worlds, I think we do need to look at 2020, especially because we weren't, in my opinion, probably able to make the acquisitions and the moves that we really wanted to in the off season. So yes, you got to look towards 2020 because
well, there's a lot more trade activity between years versus in between splits as well. So I think that's right that Dylan, that if we've got to learn what our strongest lineup is. That's job one in my mind. We got to go into 2020 knowing of the players we have signed right now, what's the best mix we have, so that we can then go out and trade, buy, sell, whatever, just to maximize for 2020. Because then, I think we are right back in the game, so long as we don't completely flop this year, which I don't think we're going to do. But I didn't think we were going to last split either.
I think one of the constant hot topics for 100 Thieves in summer 2019 is going to be when does potential trump current level of play, right? Because there are going to be a lot of questions. I'm like, well, are we thinking about the future when we're starting Soligo or Fake God? Or are we just trying to be the best team we can be right now? Because there's obviously a point where potential can trump your current level of play. You might have someone more experienced and who's playing at a higher level, but you think if we can just only develop this asset that we have who's young and pretty green, then that could turn into something really amazing for us, especially if they have a ton of promise like Fake God. So it's probably going to be something that we hear over and over again in Reddit and Discord discussions and a little bit of Twitter too. So that's something I'm keeping my eye on, is how everybody's going to be feeling about potential and current level of play.
It's a lot easier to get excited about potential if they're also smashing today, right now. That helps. That helps.
Sure. So all that said, I mean, you've made a couple allusions to this already. It sounds like you don't think we're going to be a 10th-place team in summer. No. Where are you projecting that we're going to finish?
Well, impossible to say until we see all the other moves to shake out, right? But I would say broadly, I think we will be a playoff team. So I'll leave it at that. I think we'll be in the playoffs, whether it's 6-5-4. I don't think we'll be in the top 3 again this split, but I would love to be wrong on that.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is just kind of luck sometimes too with how things shake out. It could very well be that even if we started the same roster, we would, next split we'd finish 8th or 7th instead of 10th. That could very well be the case. So that makes it kind of hard to really estimate for me where we're going to be. I think we're going to be in contention for a playoff spot. A lot of the reason is because like I just feel like we won't play as poorly as we did last split. Like that just won't repeat. But I also don't see us being this, a team that can contend with TSM or Liquid or Cloud9, which automatically
Those teams are
puts us,
strong right now.
in dream scenario 4th place, right? So,
yep.
So I'm thinking 6th or 7th maybe for where we land, and honestly, I'll be happy with that as long as if we made playoffs, I would feel like it's a pretty successful split given the scenario that we found ourselves in.
I agree.
I think like what acquisitions and stuff were available to us and what happened, like, yeah, I'd be happy if we were a playoff team again. At least we're not in 10th place,
For sure. Feels good to just be back in the competition.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm hoping.
Yeah.
I would love it. More important to me than placing is that we actually play entertaining and fun to watch League of Legends. Like that's what I really want to see.
Yeah.
I want to see us try stuff. I want to see us be an exciting team. I want people to get nervous when they play us. Like, that team, they've done some stuff. They're showing up to play this split. Because I think at the end of last split, that wasn't the case.
Yeah. John George on Twitter, he's at the esports plug. His take was, I do like giving young talent a chance to prove themselves, and Amazing has a resume. This definitely won't be a last place team. I'm thinking playoff contender, but not championship contender. That's kind of, I guess, where I'm sitting for sure. I think that's a good take. Contender for a playoff spot for sure. There are some other listener takes we got that were a little less hot, like at Small White Boy, which LOL. Yeah. He said, if we compare levels of talent and veteran experience to Team Liquid or TSM, you can see why this squad won't do anything. He says, coming from under T-Fin with like 6 pieces of merch, we needed a talented mid laner, and now taking a gamble because we couldn't find one from NA. So, I don't think that these guys are necessarily wrong, like with their takes or whatever. Yeah. And I'm a guy with more than 6 pieces of under T-Fin merch. Oh man. So that's where we're setting the bar. Is that fair to say? Like playoffs is really the bar. Like, are we all happy if that's the case? Are the fans happy? Like beyond you and me, or do you think the fans are happy with that? I
think so. I mean, we got such a huge spike of interest and passionate fan base by making it to Worlds the first year.
Yeah.
It's. I think this is still a realistic place for us to be this early on, right? Like, this is still our 2nd year in the league, and so, being in the mix, being in the playoffs, I think is good. Like, it's way better than 10th, and you just don't want to miss the postseason, especially because you then become irrelevant for months. There's nothing to talk about or look at for your team for months.
Yeah.
So I think from a fan perspective, you got to at least, because TL was a 4 seed going into group stage MSI. They were as low as you could get making it out, and here they are in the finals. So there's always opportunity to make a run, but you at least have to be invited to the dance to do that. Like you can't do that if you're just watching everybody else. So
yeah, that's a good point. It's just hard to adjust expectations from what they were at the beginning of this year.
True. Also, yeah,
we went from being a favorite for a title contender to literally the worst in the league. Now, I will say this: now that NA has established itself as the best region in the world, 10th place ain't so bad. Yeah, are we the 10th best team in the world? Maybe SKT and IG are a little better than us. Maybe G2. Okay, so is 14th, 15th more reasonable? You tell me. But that's not so bad, right? 14th, 15th world. I'll take it.
We can work with that.
Yeah, we can work with that. That's basically where we were in 2018, right?
That's right. So. No, we placed higher than that. I was looking at the placing. I think we were 7 through 10 or something, technically. Okay. We got some prize money from that. I didn't realize that.
Nice. Secure the bag, fellas. Well, let's do it again. So.
Yeah.
All right. I think this is a good place to wrap up the show. Yes. We're very excited to be doing LCS shows again.
Feels good, man. Feels good to talk about something that I'm familiar with.
Yeah, right. That we know a little bit more of. But speaking of, since we're talking about the Call of Duty podcast, guess what? Announcement.
announcement.
We're going to do another COD job on Monday. Monday is COD job time. And
bravely into the unknown.
Yeah, our special guest we will announce on Twitter probably tomorrow. But I said special guest, plural. All right. Plural. So
I called a buddy who I used to play COD with, and Cole, his cousin, plays pretty regularly.
Yeah,
they're going to join us on the pod. It's going to be awesome. Just kidding.
It's going to be great.
It's going to be better than that.
Here's my cousin, guys. Let's ask him about Call of Duty. No, it should be a great show.
It will be a great show.
And then remember, we will be posting details on the Dad Hat giveaway that we're going to be doing. So keep your eyes glued to our Twitter timeline. Do that anyway. I love Twitter so much. Talk to me on Twitter. It's so
You're
much
a Twitter expert, man.
I love Twitter.
You need to do like a workshop.
At 100 Talk Pod. Follow us there.
I would pay to go to that.
Yeah. No one wants to actually hear from me. I'm too old to do Twitter workshops.
You do Twitter better than a lot of people might.
Anyway, everyone, thanks for joining us. It's going to be an interesting couple of months coming up.
It will be.
On both fronts, Call of Duty and League of Legends.
It's good to be back.
It's good to be back.
Chat back. You guys are awesome.
Yeah, we love you so much. We love you. And we miss you already. We'll see you the next time we do a show.
Bye, everybody.
Love you. Bye.